right. Welcome to the New City Classical Academy podcast. My name is Alex Arguello. I am the host of this podcast as well as one of the founders of the school and current board president. And today we are going to be doing an interview. We're going to be interviewing Pastor Sam Schmidt, who is recently a new hire at New City Classical Academy. Get to know him a little bit and what he's going to be doing this year at the school. So why don't we start with that? Who is Pastor Sam Schmidt?
Well, first of all, aside from being a child of God, I'm married to my wife, Becca, for 12 years, I believe. Just had our anniversary. Very grateful for the helpmate God has given me. And together we have 4 children at this point, 4 boys. Ranging from 10 to 3, and we have a little girl on the way mid-September. So
awesome.
A little bit of our family life there.
That's great. So you are pastor of Sacred City, Moline, but you're not from Moline. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how someone gets from western Iowa to Moline, Illinois?
Yes, I hail from the large metropolis of Trainer, Iowa, which is a small farming town. I think I had about 53 kids in my graduating class, so pretty small. Grew up on a farm, family farm, and kind of pursued a different life for myself. I was really into music in my high school years, and that led me to first a couple years in community college in the pursuit of a music education degree. Couple years there, then transferred to the University of Northern Iowa, where I continued that, though I dropped the education part and just finished with a degree in jazz and classical trombone. And it is there that a couple big things happened. One, I met my wife there. 2, I found a tight group of friends that were not like anything I had any other friend group I've ever had before, in that they were disciples of Jesus, and they were connected to a college ministry that was connected to a local church. And so as I made friends, I made my way into a church and the college ministry that they had, and God began to kind of point me in the direction that my life eventually took. And I stepped out of the music education side of things, though I probably could have wrapped it up if I would have just really fought through it. But I felt a pretty strong call to be involved in ministry in some capacity, and given my background in music, I thought I was going to be some sort of a worship and liturgy director, something along those lines. And as I graduated, I was kind of like putting my job application out there. I had been involved in leading worship in college, and what I found was that there were not very many churches that I thought that I would be a good fit at, because in that time at UNI, I think I grew up in the church, and so I'm pretty sure from a very young age. I don't know when I was saved. I grew up in a covenant family, but in college I started taking my discipleship very seriously. Started reading. I hated reading, and then I started taking my discipleship seriously, and I just couldn't stop reading. Still read a lot today. And as I read, I gained some theological convictions. I started studying the Bible more and more, finding guys that I thought did a really good job of unpacking the scriptures. And so I found that I wasn't going to be a good fit at just any church. And in that time, I had a friend who hails from the Quad Cities at college who said, you know what, my old youth pastor is going to plant a church, and I think you should come down and check it out. Just see what it's about. I think you'd fit in. And so in a move that didn't make a lot of sense to me, I wasn't moving to the Quad Cities for a job. I didn't have anything lined up. I was moving further away from home. I moved here, and I wanted to be part of this church, and I found a job to kind of hold me over for a while, doing a couple of various things. And in my time here at Sacred City and helping plant Sacred City, the original, I started to feel a call to ministry, specifically pastoral ministry. I sort of realized that, I could serve the church in a musical capacity, but I really loved studying the Word of God. I loved training and discipling people. And so I thought pastoral ministry was the area where God was calling me into. And so I did about a year-long pastoral residency. It was a new program within the church. Pastor Justin Dean had the idea one day, or he said something in a sermon. He's like, if we want to train men, to be the next pastors, church planters. And if you're interested in that, you should shoot me a message and we'll grab coffee. And so I did that maybe the week or two after he mentioned that in his sermon. And so that's when pastoral residency started, did a year of that. Finished thinking, I'm not good at this yet, but I think this is going to be a good fit. I think this is what God is calling me into. And at that point I was like, I'm not sure what else God is calling me to do. And so I kept pursuing it. And so the next year I did a church planting residency. So on top of the pastoral stuff, being a church planter, seeing, do I have the skill set to start something new, to sustain it, to grow it, and to sort of pioneer a new work of God in this area. And so shortly after finishing that, I got assessed with our church planting network. And then I was kind of given the green light to go ahead and plant. And so I took about 40 of attenders from Sacred City, Iowa, who were Illinois residents. And we started a brand new church, Sacred City, Moline, in January of 2017. And we've just been trucking at it ever since. And God's been gracious to us. I'm very grateful for just to see how our church is growing, both in size, but also in maturity and generationally, as we continue to make disciples, plant churches, and renew the city. And so that's how I got into this spot. And along the line, my wife was graduated with a degree in education from University of Northern Iowa, and her first job was teaching at a classical Christian school. And that's where we got introduced to the classical Christian model of education.
Yeah.
That was about a decade ago.
Wow. Yeah, well, that'll definitely be one of our questions of how you kind of came to know about and love classical Christian education. But even before we get there, so we know you have your own kids, 4 boys, and then a girl on the way. So you have some experience with parenting your own children. But there was also another time where you had some experience with just leading out Sacred City kids at one point in your life. So how about that experience and how that maybe would prepare you for this role that you're stepping into at New City?
Yeah, one of my roles as I was getting going in the ministry training was overseeing various aspects of ministry. And there's probably a scattering of several different things that I had my hands in that are in some form or some iteration yet today, of developing those things and building a framework. And to be honest, I wasn't the first one to establish the Sacred City Kids Kids Ministry program, but I did have a hand in developing it to where it is today, and curriculum selection, the philosophy behind education, specifically church education. And so I got thrown in the deep end, a lot of great time learning about that, and really helpful stuff that helped me prepare to be a parent. And the vision specifically of children's ministry not being this auxiliary sort of, offload zone where you bring your kids to church, you offload them, the church is going to do the job of training them as disciples, but really the idea of partnering with parents in the discipleship of their kids. And I see a lot of that carry over into the classical education realm, classical Christian education, and just Christian education in general, where we are partnering with parents. The parents are the ones who have been given the responsibility by God to steward their children, to raise them up, to train them right according to the ways of the Lord, and then, Lord willing, to shoot them out like arrows into the world. And so seeing the importance and the help that another support network like a children's ministry or even a school can provide parents in the discipleship of their kids. I see those things coming together, both in the children's ministry realm and in the Christian education as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned your wife, Becca, teaching at Classical Christian School. Is that where you were first introduced? And then what's been your understanding since then? Have you dove into more study of it?
Yeah. So when Becca was starting teaching at Classical Christian School, she came home in one of the very first weeks of teaching and said, these people do everything backward to what I learned in college. And I was intrigued because UNI is known for being a teacher school. I think it's one of their biggest schools, and it supplies most of the state of Illinois' teaching faculty. And so I was intrigued because I was like, well, UNI is probably pretty reputable for what I know. That's kind of what attracted me to there as well.
Right.
And so like I'm trying to ask these questions like what's different, and I think really what it boiled down to was how specific. And I think Dorothy Sayers answers this question in her article, her essay, "The Lost Tools of Learning." How modern education tends to try to work against the grain, tries to compact a bunch of stuff at once that doesn't really fit the developmental stages of a child. And so that kind of education can be unproductive. It can be exhausting and just frustrating because it's not, doesn't seem to click. And what Becca was noticing was that classical education is meant to work with the grain of a child's development. It's supposed to work in tandem, not really fight against the learning stages, but to work with it. And she was kind of right on the cusp of the grammar and logic stage right there I think it was 6th grade, which is a bit of a transition point. And so she kind of got to see both sides of those worlds, with a lot of memorization, a lot of chanting, singing, songs being utilized to memorize, and classical education, especially in the early years, doesn't worry about explaining the why. It's just worried about getting the content in there. And then as a child develops and starts asking more of those questions, then the why question, and then we start to work into logic of why does it work this way, or why is history the way that is? What contributed to this thing? And so she got to see that, and I was really intrigued. And I thought, why fight against the grain? Life's already hard enough. Educating kids is already a massive challenge. Why make it harder for ourselves? And so that's when I started kind of exploring Christian education. We took a little bit of break because when Becca had our first child, that's when she stepped back from teaching in that. But we also always kind of maintained that we were going to send our kids to a classical education and give them that opportunity. We saw the academic product of a lot of kids that come out of classical Christian education are really sharp. And I think it's because the main thing about classical education, which most parents would say, yeah, this is what we love, is it teaches kids how to think, not what to think. It develops the tools for learning, for using logic and rhetoric. And so that comes in handy when there are a lot of things working against us as people. We're being fed lies, and we have to, it's our duty to discern lies from truth. And if we don't know how to process information, we're going to find ourselves caught in a net every once in a while. And so I saw that. I thought that was really attractive. And so we set the course, and let's see. And our kids, my oldest is going into 5th grade. And so ever since he got going into kindergarten, 1st grade, I just started reading more and more about it. Lots of great books, lots of great resources out there. And so I've just been sort of invested in that ever since.
Yeah. Awesome. And a piece of that investment has been the Association for Classical and Christian Schools yearly conference, which is called the Repairing the Ruins Conference. And you attended last year, and then you attended again this year. How about this year? What were a couple takeaways from the conference this year?
Well, yeah, it was a great conference both years. Lot to learn. It's just the whole world that you think. I don't know. There's just always more to learn, and that's how it goes with classical education. You're a lifelong learner. One of the things that I really took away from this year was that, and I think this applies across the board from pastoral ministry into education, is that the work that we do is hard work, and it doesn't run unopposed. And so there's this mentality, there's this real fortification that happens in times of being together with like-minded people who are committed to the same task, who are eager to make disciples, who are going to make disciples to help children and adults even to adopt a thoroughly Christian worldview. There's something really powerful about being in a room like that and seeing a lot of other people doing hard things and trusting God every step of the way. So that's one of the things that I just really appreciate about that. Nothing easy about Christian education. There's nothing easy about pastoral ministry. There's nothing easy about parenting. And so it's always a great encouragement. The other thing that I'm trying to think here, you put me on the spot because there's so much. It's hard to filter through. Yeah. One of the things that I really enjoyed, given my musical background, was I went to a breakout session called Singing School. And I I told the presenter afterwards, I went up and just expressed my gratitude for what he had shared with us, and some, it was mostly designed for music educators, and so I was kind of just a fly on the wall in my past life, like sitting in on something like this. But what I really learned from that, and what I walked away from, was just a deep joy and love for music. And in the 4 years of music education world, I think that I gained way more appreciation for the joy of singing, the need to sing, just the delight that comes as we sing to God and we hear God sing over us, that I was just like, this was great. It was everything that I was hoping that I would have gotten out of my my college degree, but to have that excitement kind of reinstilled and reinvigorated, and to have that vision for what's it look like to be a joyful school? What's it look like to like instill joy in our kids not just Sunday morning at worship, but through the halls at school, in the classrooms, in assembly, various places, and of course at the family dining room table, to help parents do the work of discipling kids and family worship and things of that. So those are a couple things that I just walked away as like, that was really good. And plus, just the time with the people from New City. It's just great to be with like-minded people and to be united in what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to have you there. So this role that you're going to be stepping into, which we're still kind of trying to figure out the name of it, right? We've come up with Director of Discipleship or Director of Soul Formation. But when you think about education, especially a Christian education, there's, this whole academic part of it. There is, the intellectual part of it. We want them to be knowing things. So even like the phrase that you use is teaching them how to think, not what to think. That what to think isn't necessarily that it's not important what it is that they're learning. It's absolutely important what it is that they're learning, especially in a Christian education. But it's more they have to know how to think about what they're learning, right?
Yeah.
But so that's one side of it. Then the other side of a Christian education is this formation piece, character formation, soul formation. And that's really where your role is going to be focusing. So what sort of things can we expect from you this year in terms of how are you going to be doing that? I know we've talked about a few different things, but maybe just get some specifics of kind of how your role is going to play out this year.
Sure. Well, I think it helps to start, like the aim of education is not to fill minds with information, but to shape loves. Like that's truly the aim. So we talk a lot about in the classical world what is good and beautiful and true, and learning to know those things and ultimately to love those things.
Yeah.
And so with the formation of a heart, formation of a soul, we're dealing in loves. And so we want to help kids gain an appreciation for that which is good and true and beautiful. And there are many, many ways to do that. But because we're Christians first, one of the things that we need to do is to understand the goodness, beauty, and truth of God and His works in creation and redemption. And so a big piece of that is assembly. So morning assembly, the way that we start out our day is by coming together and devoting what we're about to do unto the Lord, saying, Lord, bless this work that we're doing. We're not just here to get information. We're not just here to accumulate knowledge. We want our hearts, our lives to be shaped by you, so that we're not just absorbing stuff to hold on tight, but it's like theology that comes through our fingertips. Yeah. And so a lot of that work in working with the time with assembly and worship, learning hymns, opening up the Bible together, prayers, having some sort of liturgical format to help us in the shaping of our affections and loves. I'll be helping teachers kind of do some of the spiritual format. Think about what it looks like to be a teacher, and not just focus on filling these kids with information, but again, to shape their loves, to help them in that disciple-making atmosphere. It's not just, again, the content we're worried about, but shaping character. And so helping teachers in that area, equipping them in that way. Looking forward to producing content, because I want to not only focus on the students and the faculty, but help you as parents step into this calling that God's put on you as parents. And so to explain the ins and outs, the nuance of classical education, how we believe that this is the best way to go about discipling your kids and to see past your kids into future generations as well. sharing some of the vision behind the classical model, sharing what we're trying to do, like to not just make Bible time one section of many, but the fact that the Bible is in every single class, and it's the center, it's the foundation. Christ is what holds all things together. And so I'm looking to help in that, the spiritual formation side of things, parents, faculty, students, and just really create a robust culture of joy, of gladness, of truth, and thanksgiving for what we've been given by God.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So leading out the assembly, producing content, you'll be a regular on this podcast, maybe some written stuff, newsletters, those type of things. You're working with teachers, but then also you're going to be teaching.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yes, teaching.
Right now we have you slated as one of the Bible teachers. So we'll be teaching some Old Testament survey, New Testament survey, those type of things. So you went in to college, to second or higher education, thinking you potentially were going to be a teacher, and you've definitely been a teacher, right, in church.
Yep.
Now it's in a more formal, in a school. So what's your thoughts on that? What are you looking forward to there?
Well, I tell my people on Sundays, we tend to go through longer sermon series, and the longer I spend in longer time I spend in the Bible, the more excited I get about it, to see the connections that get made by particular authors. So, we just wrapped up the book of John, and to see the connections John makes throughout his gospel account, but then to see the connections that John makes between his gospel account and the other books that he authored, and then you see the connection John makes to the book of Genesis and the book of Revelation. It's like it just becomes this giant. It's so exciting to me to see the Bible come alive, and I really want to see that for our students, to see them love the Word of God, and to gain an appreciation that they would really walk away saying, like, there's no way that the Bible can't be part of my life, that this has to be the foundation for anything whatever vocation I end up in, whatever my season of life is, this is going to be the foundation. And so I hope to instill that. And so I look forward to teaching the Bible. I look forward to doing the surveys of it, because there's just a lot of really great themes that goes on when you get to take that macro view of Scripture. And so I'm looking for that. And I'm also looking forward to all the different kinds of questions that students bring up. Oh, what about this? What about that? How does this make sense if it says this? So I love those, you do a little bit of the mental gymnastics to gain understanding about what the Scriptures say and see the continuity between Old Testament and New Testament. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Be great.
That is great. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for doing this, letting people into your life, and our people getting to know you more. Hopefully it was a blessing to them. And we're just really thankful to have you being part of New City Classical Academy. We know you're going to be an asset to the school. We're thankful to have your family, Becca and the kids. It is a blessing to have all of you guys. So listeners, we would love it if you would continue to pay attention to what's happening here on the New City Classical Academy podcast. Like I said, we plan to do updates. We plan to do teaching here from Pastor Sam, as well as just interview of more of our staff and faculty, and even some families will get on here, and other people in the classical Christian education movement. So we would love it if you would continue to pay attention to us. Blessings.
Thanks for having me.